The Earth's rotation might be imperceptible to humans, but that doesn't mean your head won't spin when you discover we're living in such a weird world. On today's show, we're exploring the ruins of mythical lost kingdoms. Everyone knows the story of Atlantis, a classical tale documented by the Greek philosopher Plato. Due to arrogance and imperialism, this advanced ancient kingdom met its fate at the hands of the gods, with earthquakes sending it sinking to the bottom of the ocean. But Atlantis is just one of many lost kingdoms throughout the world, and the stories only get weirder. Follow me on a journey through the spirituality and conspiracy as we discover these mythical realms. Our travels will take us from the kingdom where a comatose King Arthur lies in wait to save Britain, to a disappearing Slavic island where we can gaze into the navel of the world. Along the way, we'll take a peek underneath the Earth's crust and count down some of my favorite subterranean societies. I'm Doug Sharp, and we're living in such a weird world. Considering the fascinating life of King Arthur, it's only fitting that his final resting place is in the mythical land of Avalon. Avalon was known as the Fortunate Isle because the land produced everything itself. There was no need for tilling or planting seeds. From apples to grains, the eternal twilight of Avalon provided. It wasn't just a lack of farming that made Avalon magical. The land was ruled by 9 fairy sisters and was the residence of a woman who knew all the magic of the world. The citizens of Avalon lived peacefully without pain, with a life expectancy well past 100 years. Arthur's famous sword, Excalibur, was forged in Avalon, and his ability to pull the sword from the stone proved he was the true king of England. But Arthur was more than a king. He was a warrior who slayed witches and monsters while leading the Knights of the Round Table. Along with his fellow knights, Arthur spent his life fighting villains and searching for the Holy Grail, the mythical cup Jesus drank from during the Last Supper. Legends credit his adventures and leadership to the unification of Britain. However, Arthur was so busy getting his nation in order, his own house was falling apart. Arthur discovered his wife was having an affair with his close companion Sir Lancelot, and Lancelot tried to escape to France, and Arthur chased him, leaving his throne vulnerable. By the time Arthur returned to Britain, his nephew Mordred had assumed control, and a deadly battle took place, and most of Arthur's knights were killed, and Arthur was horribly wounded. Morgan the Fairy took the mortally wounded Arthur to Avalon, and it only makes sense. Avalon was a land full of magic. Whether Arthur survived his wounds or not is up for debate, though some tales believe he isn't dead, only resting until he's needed to save Britain from peril. The land of Avalon and the legend of King Arthur first appeared in writing in 1136. However, the tale's enduring legacy of courage and honor are themes that still resonate with England to this day. Today, murals of Arthur and his court are found on the walls of Parliament. When it comes to mythological cities, few are as prosperous as Dvaraka. And while its 900,000 palaces made of crystal and silver might seem like opulent overkill, it wasn't a city fit for a king. It was a city fit for a god. Ancient Hindu scriptures claim Dvaraka was the capital of the kingdom of Lord Krishna, one of the most celebrated and worshipped Indian gods. And it was built in a single day by the mind of Vishvakarma, the divine architect of Hindu gods, on land reclaimed from the sea by Krishna. Vishvakarma really outdid himself with this one, decorating the pillars of Dvaraka with emeralds, sapphires, gold, and pearls, and there were even 16,000 palaces just for Krishna's queens. The effect of these dazzling designs was a kingdom of immense beauty and enchantment, often referred to as the Golden City. Surrounded by water and protected by gates, this utopia wasn't just beautiful. It was a safe space that was nearly impossible for enemies to infiltrate. However, as part of the divine plan, Krishna left the mortal world, and as a result, Dvaraka was submerged by its surrounding waters and completely vanished. The modern-day Indian city of Dvaraka pays homage to Krishna as one of the 4 sacred Hindu pilgrimage sites. However, there's at least some belief that Dvaraka could have been an actual site. Between 1983 and 1990, India's National Institute of Oceanography carried out underwater excavations that discovered ancient beads, bells, shells, and statues from 1500 BC. Whether it's proof that this golden city did exist, or if it's just some remnants of another ancient civilization is up for debate. However, Dvaraka will always stand as a symbol of spiritual prosperity and the fleeting nature of the material world. Many lost kingdoms are the product of a culture's spiritual or mythological history, but the roots of Agartha, a lost kingdom believed to exist beneath our very feet, stems from an attempt to connect the spirituality of two different cultures. The city of Agartha was first mentioned by French author Louis Jacoliot in his 1873 book God's Sons. Jacoliot spent much of his life examining the Indian roots of Western occultism, and he claimed that while living in India, he was given access to ancient manuscripts which revealed 15,000 years of Indian history. Part of this secret history included the city of Agartha. According to Jacoliot, Agartha was the capital of ancient India, ruled by the manifestations of God until its demise in 5000 BC. Though God's Sons had more in common with Norse mythology than Indian, the book was a massive success in France. French occultist André Saint-Yves d'Alvedre added to the myth of Agartha in his 1886 book Mission of India to Europe. Saint-Yves claimed he had made telepathic contact with spiritually enlightened citizens of Agartha and was able to visit the city through astral projection. Saint-Yves wrote that Agartha was still in existence underground. The city was populated by millions of beings with two tongues, who could speak multiple languages at once, including the original language of humanity, and their society was technologically advanced and ruled by a magical being. The idea of Agartha fit nicely into the burgeoning beliefs of theosophy. Based on the writings of Russian mystic Helena Blavatsky, theosophists believed that a secret brotherhood of spiritual masters lived in a series of caverns underneath Tibet. Many theosophists began including Agartha into their theories as historical precedent. Eventually, Hollow Earth conspiracy theorists would draw parallels between their theories and Agartha, leading to John Quincy Adams, the 6th President of the United States, approving a mission to send explorers to the center of the Earth. Every step of the way, the tale of Agartha was built on, manipulated, and passed along. But why were people so willing to believe in an advanced civilization right beneath their feet? Well, it might have something to do with the fact that this isn't such an unfamiliar story. Let's take a scratch just beneath the surface for a subterranean society speed round. Often confused with Agartha, Shambhala is a utopian city hidden beneath the Himalayas. It's free of all evil, a paradise of pure enlightenment written about in the Hindu and Buddhist texts. It's the home of immortality, and only those who are pure of heart can enter. Both Buddhism and Hinduism view Shambhala as the site where the final incarnation of the god Vishnu will reign. This reign will begin after all the dark forces have been vanquished from the world, ushering in an age of unheralded peace. Mark your calendars, this worldwide golden age was predicted to take place 400 years from now in the year 2425. In Greek mythology, there are three distinct realms that make up the cosmos: the heavens, the earth, and the underworld. The underworld, also known as Hades, was literally buried right beneath our feet. Many of the darker gods lived here, including the goddess of magic, the goddess of revenge, and the god of death. Hades is not to be confused with hell. Both good and bad souls were escorted here by Hermes after their death to be judged by the three sons of Zeus. The good would be taken from Hades to the beautiful Elysian fields. The bad would face eternal torture in the prison pit, so it is kind of like hell. Much like Hades, Hindu cosmology has an underworld called Patala, and it's ruled by Vasuki, the snake that drapes itself around Shiva's neck. Demons and half-human, half-serpent beings call this realm home. And while it sounds intimidating, Patala is a beautiful land full of music and jewels, where there's no old age or disease. But all this prosperity doesn't protect Patala from the wrath of the gods and demons. In fact, it's often the stage for battles between them. The wealth and beauty of Patala symbolizes how temptation can distract from spiritual growth. In Norse mythology, there are 9 realms that make up the universe. One of these realms is Svartalfheim. This realm lies beneath the feet of mortals and is home to an underground society of dark dwarves. The dwarves of Svartalfheim are master craftsmen, and because of their skill and access to the Earth's hidden resources, Some of the most important artifacts of Norse mythology were forged in these cavernous lands. According to legend, Odin's golden ring and Thor's mighty hammer were fashioned by the dwarves in the caverns under the Earth's crust. The underworld of ancient Egypt is known as Duat. It's the home of gods and demons, where spirits of the dead are forced to face judgment for the right to enter the afterlife. If you pass the test, you're allowed to harvest abundant crops for eternity, and if you fail the test, your soul is devoured. The test was simple. The deceased would stand before 42 divine judges and plead their innocence. For each judge, a different plea from the Book of the Dead was used. If each judge was satisfied, your heart was weighed against the feather of the goddess Mat. And if it was lighter than the feather, the god Osiris welcomed you to the afterlife. If it was heavier, your heart was eaten. While many lost cities and kingdoms come from spiritual texts or historical narratives, the lost land of Lemuria began in the pages of a scientific journal. In 1864, the British zoologist Philip Sclater wrote the essay The Mammals of Madagascar for the Quarterly Journal of Science. In the article, he questioned why lemur fossils were found in Madagascar and India, but not in Africa or the Middle East. Sclater hypothesized that there must have been a long-lost continent or land bridge in the Indian Ocean that lemurs used to migrate. He believed this landmass connected southern India, southern Africa, and western Australia before sinking to the bottom of the ocean. A scientific theory like Sclater's wasn't uncommon for the time. Biologists and geologists were fascinated by the similarities between continents and often argued that land bridges were the most logical explanation. Lemuria was treated as a serious scientific theory and spread even further after German biologist Ernest Haeckel published his book The History of Creation. Haeckel took the Lemuria theory even further, claiming it was more than likely the cradle of humanity. Haeckel wrote that Lemuria was where humans first evolved from primates, and it would be nearly half a century before the scientific community found a more probable answer to migration and evolution in the form of tectonic plates and continental drift. And at the time, Lemuria became ingrained in growing occult and spiritual beliefs. You might remember the name Helena Blavatsky from the Lost Kingdom of Agartha. Well, it turns out her fingerprints are all over the lost kingdoms of the late 19th century. Her 1888 book, The Secret Doctrine, helped promote the story of Lemuria, and it claimed the citizens of Lemuria were the third root race of humanity. Just a few years later, theosophist William Scott Elliot took the theory of Lemuria and ran wild with it in his book, The Lost Lemuria. Scott Elliot, with the help of an astral clairvoyant named Charles Leadbeater, described the Lemurians as 15-foot-tall, egg-laying neighbors of the dinosaurs. He claimed they had 4 arms and flat faces that gave them sideways vision. As the middle of the 20th century saw the theory of Lemuria fall out of favor in the scientific community, the escalating tale of this lost continent and its mythical creatures had already captured the imagination of many occultists and the New Age spiritualists. Lemuria lived on in books and through the teachings of the Tamil people of South Asia as a lost continent crucial to the development of humanity. While Lemuria was thoroughly debunked in the context of evolution and lemurs, in 2013, scientists discovered evidence suggesting the supposed area where Lemuria sank into the ocean was in fact once a landmass. However, that landmass disappeared about 30 million years before lemurs evolved in Madagascar. All the cities and kingdoms on this list disappeared, but only one reappeared over and over and over again. Buyan is a mysterious land in Slavic mythology that disappears and reappears with the tides. The island plays a big role in Slavic folklore, where it's credited as the first bit of earth to appear from the waves of the ocean. One of the most famous tales of Buyan involves the soul of Koschei the Deathless. Koschei is a nearly indestructible villain in many Slavic tales. The secret to destroying him lies in destroying his soul, which is no easy task. Not only is his soul on the disappearing island of Buyan, it's hidden inside a needle, that's inside an egg, that's inside a duck, that's inside a hare, that's inside an iron chest, that's buried under a mystical oak tree. Aside from Koschei's soul, you might find an Indrik while strolling through Buyan. Known as the king of all animals, this beast has the body of a bull, the head of a horse, the legs of a deer, and a large horn. The Indrik causes earthquakes by moving under the mountains, and it serves as the protector of the rest of the animals on the island. As majestic as an Indrik can be, one of the most fascinating sights in all of Buyan is the Alatir. The Alatir is a sacred stone that's considered the navel of the world by virtue of its place directly in the middle of the cosmic sea. Those who find the Alatir will experience its healing powers and be granted eternal happiness. It also serves as the base for the world tree, protected by a wise snake and a bird with an iron beak and copper claws. The world tree connects the heavens to the earth. I'm confident when I say the earth isn't hollow and humans didn't evolve from four-legged giants. Anthropologists and archaeologists are constantly finding new pieces of humanity's puzzle, often revealing that advanced ancient civilizations aren't as far-fetched as some people might think. That we continue to search for these mythological kingdoms reveals a deep human obsession with the concept of lost history. It makes sense that we leave no ancient stone unturned. Our cultures stretch back so far, it can feel like too many pages of history have been left blank. It's only human to embrace stories that help us make better sense of ourselves.